Lecture 2, Emotional Challenges of Caregiving and How to Address Them. Hello, and welcome to the next module of the course. In this lecture, we are going to address the main challenges of informal caring relationships. We will also go through signs of burnout and recommend helpful coping strategies. As mentioned in the previous lecture, informal carers are individuals, usually family members, providing unpaid care and support to loved ones living in chronic medical conditions or facing end-of-life issues. The requirements of caring differ from one family to another, as they depend on the medical conditions of the person needing help. The intensity of care depends on the severity of the disease and how long it has progressed. Moreover, informal caring entails two dimensions. The first is the material dimension related to the physical labor of caring. The second is the emotional dimension associated with the affective aspects of caring. Research shows evidence of a significant amount of emotional investment in the caring relationship between informal carers and the cared-for person. This results in informal carers being more prone to psychopathology than the general population due to their caring role. Regarding the physical labor of caring, informal carers usually deal with the consequences of the caring tasks they are responsible for. They must cope with the significant strains that caring includes, and as a result, they feel worn down. This level of fatigue can cause significant physical exhaustion associated with systemic symptoms including insomnia, fatigue, or weight changes. There are many primary emotional challenges that older adults and their informal carers experience at the beginning. They include uncertainty about the future, sudden onset of problems, role changes in relationships at home, and adjustment to life changes due to the caring situation. In this phase of caring, it is common for carers to experience denial and to have difficulties accepting the situation, which can be perceived as threatening and dangerous. Moreover, health issues in later life may result in death, profound disability, potential injuries, and hospitalizations. Furthermore, altered life prospects for older people can cause fear, anxiety, and extreme emotional distress for both recipients and carers. Research on stroke patients found that significant emotional distress in the form of depression, anxiety, shock, and post-traumatic symptoms is widespread and remains chronic in both patients and informal carers. Carers usually report that professional services are directed to the needs of older people, not those of the carers, and that carers feel abandoned by the healthcare system. This situation leads to feelings of anger, disappointment, resentment, and sadness. Furthermore, the fact that informal carers seek assistance from professional health services can cause feelings of guilt, betrayal, grief, and failure. These feelings arise due to the inability to continue providing adequate care for older people at home. Feelings of guilt and remorse can also occur when informal carers experience emotions of helplessness, hopelessness, apathy, or an inability to be empathetic. These conditions can lead to low life satisfaction and overall decrease in quality of life. Informal carers often go through feelings of anger and frustration. They are often reluctant to share these feelings with others for fear of being perceived as morally disreputable if, for example, they complain about their workload and say they cannot stand the person in need anymore. Besides the inability to express their emotions freely, informal carers often face social isolation. Firstly, they spend most of their time caring for the person in need, and therefore are left with little time for other social relations. Secondly, friends and family of informal carers might not understand the situation, as they have never been in their position. They might isolate the informal carer as a consequence of this misunderstanding. This leaves the informal carers alone in a time when they need family and friendship networks the most, as they could provide them with the emotional support that they need to reinforce their determination and ability to continue taking care. Relationships with recipients can also be impacted. Some carers note that they are often on the receiving end of recipients' frustration and anger, which leads to conflict between them and the person being cared for. Harding and Higginson, 2001, found high levels of ambivalence among carers. Ambivalence is defined as simultaneous attraction to and repulsion from an action, inhibiting individuals who experience it from making decisions and taking action. Younger carers reported great ambivalence about the choice between caring and other social and professional activities. Therefore, any intervention for carers must consider the ambivalence of their unmet needs and how this may transfer into the act of caring and support provided to the person that they care for. The well-being of the informal carer is crucial if patients are to be cared for at home. Some carers acknowledge positive emotions and growth from their caring roles, such as pride, enhanced learning, and greater empathy. In particular, some carers express pride and gratitude in being able to give back to their loved ones. Furthermore, informal carers feel safe and secure as long as they are responsible for caring for their loved ones. This is because the atmosphere within the home provides a sense of safety, love, and caring, as well as feelings of warmth and inclusion. It is also noted that having a positive attitude towards caring helped them to go through difficult periods, as this role made them feel valued and was a source of personal accomplishment and joy. The ability for carers to find positive meaning in their caring experiences is called meaning-based coping. It is associated with higher quality of life among carers. However, taking care of someone at home can be very challenging and demanding. Often, the care provided exceeds the physical and mental capacity of the carers, leading to a chronic stress situation, referred to in the literature as carer burden. Stress and exhaustion are everyday situations among informal carers, and it has been found that emotional exhaustion is closely related to depersonalization, anxiety, and depressive symptoms. Therefore, it is crucial to learn how to recognize signs of care stress to avoid reaching high levels of exhaustion. So, how does a carer reach the point of exhaustion? It can result from the informal carer's tendency not to ask for help or to try to do more than they are capable of. It usually happens because they feel overwhelmed by their caregiving experience and lack physical, mental, emotional, or financial support. So, due to the amount of attention given to the person in need, a persistent lack of self-care may occur. Besides this, other elements can lead to carer exhaustion. For instance, carers may have difficulty separating their role as a carer from the role of a spouse, child, or friend. Furthermore, carers could get their hopes up and believe their care will positively affect the health and happiness of the person they are caring for. However, this may be unrealistic, for example, for patients who have a progressive disease, such as Parkinson's or Alzheimer's. A carer might get frustrated due to the lack of resources and skills to manage the caregiving relationship. Informal carers are often also full-time employees, or students if they are young carers. Raising children and providing financial support for their families makes caring a challenge on multiple levels. Balancing these responsibilities can severely affect informal carers' health conditions. Caring can raise stress levels to the point that it reaches the so-called carer burnout, namely a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion in which the informal carer and the person that they are caring for both suffer. Burnout can sometimes be perceived as feeling overly tired or occasionally exhausted. However, being tired can often be resolved by taking a break, getting a little more sleep, or actively trying to relax, while burnout is not so easy to relieve. In the USA, carers are among the 3 most stressed groups in the country, with 70% of family carers showing signs of depression, which is a very high rate compared to individuals who are not informal carers. To this extent, individuals who experience carer burnout tend to face all-encompassing fatigue that impacts multiple areas of their lives. Burnout can occur because informal carers often focus so intently on the needs of the individual receiving care that they may neglect their own health and wellness. Burnout can result in a change in attitude from positive and caring to negative and unconcerned. Carers begin experiencing fatigue, stress, anxiety, depression, and even guilt if they spend some time on themselves. When these signs are not considered and the informal carers do not seek help, they eventually reach burnout, which also has its signs and symptoms. For example, carers have much less energy than they once had. They also tend to be constantly exhausted, even after sleeping or taking a break, and neglect their own needs because they are too busy or do not care anymore. Although their lives revolve around caring, it gives them little satisfaction, and they have trouble relaxing even when help is available. They can become increasingly impatient and irritable with the person they are caring for, and finally, feel helpless and hopeless. Moreover, carers' emotional and physical exhaustion may even lead to feelings of wanting to hurt themselves or the person for whom they are caring. Informal carers may start withdrawing from friends and family, experiencing a loss of interest in the activities they used to enjoy. A visible sign of burnout is a significant weight change. They can significantly lose weight, often due to a lack of time to eat adequately or nutritiously, but also affected by anxiety that tends to lower their appetite. On the other hand, it is also possible for them to gain weight as they start eating quickly and unhealthy food and snacking all the time as a form of dealing with the accumulated stress. They also tend to get sick more often, getting chronic back or neck aches or developing high blood pressure. Mental and emotional stress lower immunity and can lead to physical disorders that manifest more frequently than usual. If carers find themselves crying or feeling despair unexpectedly or more often, that could be another warning sign, especially considering that developing depression is a risk for them. Another symptom of burnout is when carers start having sleep problems. Caring can be physically exhausting, and thus, we could expect carers to start sleeping as soon as their head touches the pillow. But the emotional load that comes with their work can instead lead to sleepless nights, which can become a vicious cycle. Concerning the social life of carers who are reaching burnout, they usually start socially isolating themselves. They can do it if their care recipients' behavioral changes make them feel embarrassed, or they feel like they cannot find the time to go out, as they invest all their time and energy in providing care. At the same time, carers might start getting complaints from other family members, who can also begin expressing concerns about their well-being. Carers often take on all the burden of care without asking for help. Protective factors and carers' coping strategies. One way out from the vicious cycle of burden is building individual and family resilience. Resilience is relative resistance to adversity or risk, and is considered essential to well-being in later life. It is shaped by socioeconomic, psychosocial, and social support, as well as cultural circumstances. These circumstances, or, in other words, protective factors, are often referred to as internal attributes. For example, self-esteem and self-efficacy, and external resources, such as social support and financial resources. Through caring for and supporting older adults, informal carers can play a significant role in their resilience. For example, resilience could be acquired when an informal carer receives material and emotional support from the extended family and society. A study on informal caring in Ghana has found that a strong sense of resilience can be created through personal and environmental resources. More precisely, personality and societal characteristics are a source of support during times of distress, vulnerability, and burden. The extended family, the church community, and neighbors help develop spirituality and resilience. The study's findings suggest that carers believed that caring for older people is a call from God that will be rewarded. Carers also thought that assisting older people leads to developing the mental toughness to resist negative thoughts of quitting their caregiving responsibilities. It also appears that the lack of alternative carers encouraged carers to accept their caregiving role. In order to tackle the challenging journey of caring, carers need information about support mechanisms, service provision, and treatment options. Professional carers can increase the knowledge of informal carers on the process of aging, caring, elder abuse, and enhance coping skills in caring. Seeking help and consolation from experts can be crucial, as every human being needs a safe and warm environment where they are accepted. One way to do that is through online health communities. Scholars define these as a patient-oriented health social network. The goal of online health communities is to help carers to connect, share their experiences, exchange useful information, and emotional support. By participation in online health communities, carers become stronger and more confident in the journey of caring. They might have fewer experiences of distress and emotional turmoil, as knowledge exchange in these communities can positively impact the well-being of carers. The needs of informal carers are certainly not negligible and require a great deal of attention. Informal carers can develop several strategies for coping and relief from the caregiving demands and satisfying their own needs. Self-care is of fundamental importance for informal carers. Stress reduction techniques, like getting adequate rest and eating a balanced diet, are recommended by experts, as well as taking guilt-free time off and paying attention to healthcare needs. By extending free time and addressing their own desires and needs, the carers also take care of their identity. Keeping interests unrelated to caring and dedicating time to visit places and friends satisfies the carer's need to connect and socialize with other people. Continuation of the carer's activities, such as social contacts and hobbies, helps to decrease vulnerability. It makes it easier to keep control over their involvement in the patient's care and increases positive feelings about caring. Work should also remain unrelated to caring, as it is an activity that constitutes a human need. People use it to form a personal identity and organize their daily lives. By working, adults feel hopeful, connected with others, and they expand social capital. Employment also brings financial independence to the carer. Work encourages individuals to be active in society. Regular physical activity can also improve the carer's social network and mental health. In case they are not used to physical activity, they can decide to start by taking a walk around the city. Walking stimulates blood flow and delivers oxygen to the cells. An adult's recommended daily physical activity is at least 30 minutes per day. Support groups with informal carers of older adults can satisfy the need for inclusion and commitment that stems from the need for integration. Informal carers can often experience stigma, isolation, and exclusion as they care for a person with a chronic illness. These groups provide platforms for carers to exchange skills and share coping and self-care strategies, reduce isolation by engaging carers in social activities, and offer psychosocial support and problem-solving skills. Support groups aimed at relatives caring for older people also help by expressing feelings of guilt, shame, and anger. Another good way for informal carers to lighten the load and find more balance in their lives is to change their mindset around it. For instance, instead of asking themselves why they ended up in that situation, it will be good to try practicing acceptance of the circumstances instead. If they care for the person in need, there must be a reason other than mere need or necessity. It is better for the carers to focus on their caregiving choice rather than feeling sorry for themselves or searching for someone to blame. In the same way, carers could try to focus on the positive aspects of caring, such as the stronger bond built with their loved ones, or the things they have learned throughout this journey, and maintain their sense of humor. It can be positive for carers to only focus on the things they have direct control over, while also celebrating the small victories coming from their caregiving experience, such as simply making them feel loved and safe. Without love, all other needs cannot exist. Development of emotional intelligence can also be beneficial. Increased knowledge and awareness of strategies to deal with emotions can help informal carers. The goal is to gain greater control over what triggers emotions and how to respond. The first step towards emotional awareness is learning to identify and describe their feelings, as well as their source. Meditative interventions are increasingly accepted to reduce stress and improve well-being among people with increased vulnerability. Such interventions can encompass a range of techniques, including open awareness, meditation, mindfulness, and mantra-based integrative body movement traditions, such as yoga or Tai Chi. Such programs have been tested on carers to teach them how to cope with stress, pain, and illness. So-called moment-to-moment attention to aspects of daily life in an intentional, non-judgmental, and non-reactive way has been found very helpful. For informal carers, there were significant improvements in their mood regarding depression and anxiety, stress, exhaustion, and care burden. Psychosocial interventions to support carers of older persons. There are many ways to provide support to informal carers through interventions. One of them is psychoeducation. The term psychoeducation encompasses a range of interventions, usually carried out in a group setting, that combine educational activities with other supportive actions to help patients and their families better understand and cope with the consequences of a disease. The models used vary significantly in duration, content, and techniques. They can be classified into informational, skills-based, supportive, and blended. The first model focuses on informing patients and family members about the disease and its management. This model is close to therapeutic education that we are going to discuss next. The second intervention model is called the skills-based model. It aims at getting users to develop specific behaviors that enable them to cope better with the consequences of the disease. The third model is based on support groups that share emotions and experiences. The purpose of this model is primarily to support participants so that they acquire tools to better cope with the condition experienced from the emotional point of view. This is a model akin to that of mutual help groups. Finally, the blended model combines elements of all three previous models. Another approach to interventions is called therapeutic education. The purpose of it was defined by the World Health Organization in 1998, to help patients and families understand disease and treatment, cooperate with healthcare providers, live healthy lives, and improve or maintain quality of life. It is a recommended pathway for a long list of chronic conditions, from cancer to mental disorders, diabetes, and musculoskeletal conditions. Therapeutic education differs substantially from psychoeducation because it is more oriented to informing and training the patient and their care. It provides information concerning how to manage the disease from a health point of view in the context of home, for example, use of drugs, the performance of care practices, etc. According to Lager et al., 2008, the focus of this model is an accurate transfer of skills from the healthcare professional to the patient. It should be emphasized that the trainers in the case of therapeutic education are mostly health professionals. However, the same authors point out that these professionals often lack the pedagogical skills to structure an appropriate training intervention. The last type of intervention we are going to discuss today is called mutual aid groups. They were developed in the 1930s in the United States with the experience of Alcoholics Anonymous. Mutual aid groups are groups of people who come together to secure mutual support to overcome a common problem. Today, there are mutual aid groups dedicated to various issues: disability, addiction, chronic illness, and family care. The intervention is based on the idea that mutual help begins with self-help the moment the person recognizes the existence of a problem and takes action to seek some form of support. Mutual aid occurs when there is an experience of sharing between those who help and those who are helped, with respect to facts, experiences, and emotions of a common problem. The benefit brought by self-help groups to their participants is primarily emotional. Sharing experiences with one's peers facilitates coping. It decreases negative emotions, helps to realize that one is not alone in a given situation, and therefore reduces the perception of stigma, makes one feel understood, helps to create social ties, and also allows one to identify positive role models to aspire to. This is the end of today's lecture. Thank you for watching. I hope it was useful and now you have a better understanding of what informal carers are usually going through. In the next lecture, we are going to address the topic of elder abuse. Please don't forget to do your weekly assignment before you move on to the next module. Take care and goodbye.